Have you ever wanted to create a library in Python that anyone can use, regardless of their programming language? It sounds challenging, but today we're going to simplify that process for you. I totally understand your frustration. You want your Python package to be accessible to users of different languages, but the thought of managing input and output files can be overwhelming. You're not alone in this. Many developers face the same challenge. Let's dive into the specific question at hand. How can you create a package in Python that allows users from any programming language to interface with it? You mentioned the idea of using input and output files, but that can be computationally expensive. So what are the alternatives? To understand this better, we need to consider how different programming languages communicate. Typically, they can interact through APIs or by using common data formats. This is where we can find a more efficient solution than just file handling. Stay with me. By the end of this video, you'll have a clear path to creating a language-independent library that can save you time and effort. To create a language-independent library in Python, the user should consider using a common data interchange format. One popular choice is JSON, which is widely supported across many programming languages. Next, the user should define the input and output structure using JSON. This means specifying the data that the library will accept and return in a clear JSON format. After defining the structure, the user can implement the library functions in Python. These functions should read the input JSON, process the data, and return the output in JSON format. To facilitate interaction with other languages, the user can create a simple command line interface. This interface will allow users to pass JSON files as input and receive JSON files as output. Finally, the user should document the library clearly. This documentation should include examples of how to use the library from different programming languages, demonstrating how to call the Python functions using JSON. Fun fact, the first web API was created in the late 1990s, and it revolutionized how applications communicate. Imagine how far we've come since then. Now let's look at the answers provided by other users. One alternative approach is to provide an API using a common protocol like HTTP. This allows other languages to interact with your Python library through a REST service. There are many resources available to help you get started with this, such as a guide on designing a RESTful API with Python and Flask. If you prefer to keep everything local, you can embed your Python functionality into other programs. Python.org provides a primer on how to do this effectively. That's it for that answer. Let's take a look at another one. This user suggests using interprocess communication, or IPC, to create a language-independent library. They explain that different programming languages typically can't run in the same process, so one language must call another through IPC. They recommend using standard input and output for communication, which can be efficient. The slowest part is starting the Python process, but this can be improved by keeping the process alive between calls. The user provides a code example showing how to implement this approach using JSON for serialization. The main program calls a function from the library, and the library processes the input and returns the output. That's it for that answer. Let's take a look at another one. An alternative approach suggests that while there's no direct way to create a universally callable library, using a COM interface on Windows can help. This allows integration with programs like Excel and MATLAB, but it can be complex to implement. The user also mentions that if read and write operations are slow, you might not be using Panda's efficient read CSV and to CSV functions. For even faster performance, consider using binary HDF5 files. For a simpler solution, you can embed Python in your application. This allows you to call Python functions directly from various languages by using an executable file. This method is easy and effective for cross-language compatibility. Finally, the user provides a compiled version of Python with necessary libraries included. making it easier for Windows users to distribute their scripts without hassle. That wraps up that answer. Let's move on to another one. One alternative solution is to use Python to extend your Python code and compile it as a C library. This involves changing the def keyword to cdef public for the functions you want to expose and specifying variable types. Once compiled, many programming languages can interface with your C library using Foreign Function Interfaces, or FFI. That's it for that response. Let's explore another one. One alternative solution is to create a REST API. This allows you to send input and output over HTTP, making it easier for different languages to interact with your Python library. Another option, though more complex, is to use CORBA, which stands for Common Object Request Broker Architecture. Python has an implementation called OmniOrb, enabling communication between applications written in various languages. Here's a pro tip. Always document your API endpoints clearly. Good documentation can make a huge difference in how easily others can use your library. And there you have it. You now have the tools to create a language-independent library using Python. Remember, whether you choose RESTful APIs or gRPC, the key is to make it accessible. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe for more tips and tricks.